For instance, look at the life of David. In Psalms 89:27, David writes this, "Also, I will make him my firstborn, the highest of all the kings of the earth." So God says that he will make David his firstborn. Now, here's the fact. David was actually what? The lastborn of Jesse. He was actually the lastborn, not the firstborn of Jesse. So did God make a mistake here? What is he actually referring to here? Well, it's a figurative sense. You see, under the Jewish law, the firstborn enjoyed special privileges. And so what he's saying here is that David has all the special privileges that fall towards the firstborn son. That he gets all the rights and special privileges of the firstborn son. Now, what were those rights and privileges? First of all, under Jewish law, the firstborn son had a special relationship with the father. He had this special relationship that none of the other kids had with the father. Secondly, he received a double portion of his father's inheritance. I'm the firstborn son in my family. I'm sending this tape to my dad. He received a double portion of his father's inheritance. Number 3, the firstborn son of the king would inherit the kingdom of his father. And so whatever kingdom the king had, the firstborn son would inherit it. Fourthly, the firstborn son could never be disinherited. So all other sons could be disinherited, but the firstborn son could not be disinherited. Just as a side note, there was also another child that could never be disinherited under Roman law, and that was the son who was adopted. If you were an adopted son or daughter, you could never be disinherited by your father. Why? Because you were chosen. You were chosen. Now guess what? You and I have been adopted into the family of our Father. You and I can never be disinherited. It can't happen. Fifthly, the firstborn son would succeed the father in authority. And lastly, the firstborn would receive the paternal blessing of the father. He would receive the blessing from the father. Now, when Paul writes of Jesus, that he's the expression firstborn over all creation, it indicates this about Jesus. That Jesus had a special relationship with God the Father. In John 14:9, he says, "If you have seen me, you've seen the Father." Jesus receives a double portion of his Father's inheritance. In Hebrews 1:9, it says this, "Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness more than all your conquerors." Number 3, Jesus, being the firstborn son of the king, inherits the kingdom of the Father. He gets the whole thing. In Luke 4, he announced it to everyone. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's anointed me to be king." Fourthly, Jesus could never be disinherited. And in 2 Samuel 7:16, speaking of the throne of David, which leads to Jesus Christ, the prophet writes this, "Your throne is established forever, never to be disinherited." Fifthly, Jesus would succeed the Father in authority. In Matthew 28:18, Jesus announces to everyone in his resurrection, "All authority has been given to me." So he has succeeded the Father in authority. And lastly, Jesus receives the paternal blessing from the Father. And in Luke 33, we see God, the heavens opening up, the Spirit of God descending upon Jesus, and God announcing to all, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." So Jesus, being the firstborn, has a unique place of supremacy, primacy, and sovereignty over all.